Greetings. It is Monday, January the 27th, 2025. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Monday Morning Report. My, how much difference 200 or so hours can make. As I record this, Donald Trump has been back in office for fewer than 200 hours, about a week. And a lot's gotten done. He's done more to rebuild the United States in that amount of time than several of the previous administrations have done. He's utilizing the power of his office and executive action to basically enforce the laws, which is what the purpose of the executive branch of government of the United States is there for. Securing the border, yes. U.S. military troops are doing what they're supposed to do, protecting the country. They're down at the border now. I've gotten several eyewitness reports back. And around the country, immigration agents are rounding up people who should not be here. And people who should not be in many cases. A lot of them are criminal gangs with long histories of murder, rape, robbery, all sorts of interesting, diverse viewpoints. Well, they're being rounded up. Unfortunately, Mexico doesn't want to take any back, or didn't want to. There was a U.S. military cargo plane that was supposed to bring some back. They didn't want that. Call me old-fashioned, but I just would have dumped them out over the runway and let them fall. But, I guess we're a little too civilized in the United States. Mexico, South America, Central America, which is going to see exactly how weak they are going to eventually fall into line and start behaving like countries that pretend to be civilized. Now, there are some good countries, and there's a lot of good people in South America. Don't get me wrong. I've spent some time there, and there's a lot of good people everywhere, but the people who run those nations need to be, dealt with. The U.S. is fighting back, and it is wonderful to watch. Oh, we've left the World Health Organization, and, this is going to be entertaining. The stuff we're doing, of course, the climate change nonsense, which the Paris Accords, nobody's ever bothered to read these documents. You ever notice that? I always talk about drinking from the fountain of knowledge, not gargling at it. I actually spent the time some time ago going through that Paris Accord, and it's absolute crazy nonsense. Really. As we like to say, we're in it for the memes and the reality show side of things. Boy, the Trump administration should be charging pay-per-view. We would probably balance the budget in no time. One of the more entertaining things I've seen is Donald Trump dressing down the people in Davos at the World Economic Forum. You know them, the villains headed up by the ultimate arch-villain, Karl Schwab. Boy, he would have given the old Nazis a real chill. That guy is a monster. It was fun to see Trump basically tell them off in front of the whole world, telling other people how to live and how to behave, and you are going to own nothing and be happy, and no one's put them in power. They've just decided to seize it. It was fun to watch. Mark my words, though, people want Donald Trump dead. The elite really want him gone, and I hope to heaven, hell, and everything in between that he is protected. So what else is going on? Oh, it was very heartwarming to see the new president in North Carolina, a beautiful state I've spent a fair amount of time in, beautiful people who were treated like absolute dirt by the previous administration. He's doing what he can to help them, but I got to tell you, it was entertaining to watch him in Los Angeles. Now, he did go out and see some of the people who were burned out in places like Pacific Palisades, and don't get me wrong, California is probably one of the most beautiful places on earth that has ever existed. But it's run by insane, crazy people who shouldn't be in government, in fact, shouldn't even be on the street in most cases. It was fun to watch Trump confront all these political leaders in Los Angeles, especially that ridiculous mayor that they came up with, confronting them all with common sense and rational thought. The guy does have a background in real estate and knows something about it. and also about all the crazy permits. People aren't able to clear their own lots. I tend to think that in a few days you're going to find out that a lot of things that were promised have not yet been carried out down there. Frankly, I would just federalize the whole state at this point. I mean, Americans are being tyrannized by domestic enemies, which is the best way to describe the government of California, especially the southern side. I understand they are finally letting the water flow to the south, which, well, you can't really relate to people who are insane, so I'm not even going to try that one. But again, California believes in slavery, if you think about it. They tyrannize people who don't agree with them politically. They have imported invaders into the country to the threat of all of us. They have come up with the most insane regulations. They believe in slavery, so why not send in federal troops? What other reason has the federal government had to invade another state than one that believes in slavery of its own population? And that's certainly what California seems to think. But again, people are going to try to be civilized, I guess, and although I would consider it very civilized to federalize California at this point. Take away its statehood until the people there can grow up. Now, there are good people there, don't get me wrong. I have very good friends there I love to death, and I cringe every time I hear about the insanity going on. There is one thing, though, that has to be pointed out. I don't see why the rest of the United States, which has been taxed and abused so much by the federal government and state governments, should have to pay 1 penny to supplement the insanity that California has exhibited over the last several decades. Why should we pay to rebuild the homes of all these ultra-leftist elitists that were burned out because they weren't smart enough to keep their grass mowed and their forests clean? I'm open. Really, why should we pay for that? Why should we pay for that? Because we're nice? No. Californians have really run roughshod over this country in many respects. No, we've got to take care of people locally. I think Trump is right about either curtailing or getting rid of FEMA and just helping states get things done properly when they need them. Different disasters in different locations require different ways of planning things out. I've been involved in federal contracting many years ago, and I have seen the amount of waste that goes on, especially at FEMA, and it's got to stop. We can't afford this anymore. No, I hope California changes its tune, but they were able to come up with $50 million added to their state budget to counter whatever the Trump administration is going to be doing when people were living on the streets and being burned alive. There's a lot more going on right now, but I think it's important to point something out. Those of you who said, hey, we've elected Donald Trump president and a new incoming administration and we're going to make America great again, yada, 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 don't think for a second the other side is defeated. It's just the side that believes in sanity and rational thought has decided to finally fight back. The war is on, folks. And if you spend any amount of time looking at what's going on behind the scenes right now, it will be a little disturbing. Yes, we're deporting people, finally, but look at all the local school districts, governments, cities that say they're going to fight back. Are we going to send in federal troops to arrest these people? Well, I would, but I don't know. People are going to fight it out in the courts? Now, let me tell you something, too, and this has come from people who know, who I've been in touch with. A lot of these criminal gangs are not going to give in that easily. Some probably will, but a lot of them are going to fight to the death. Have you ever come into contact with some of these gangs from Central and South America? I have. I don't think any of them have souls. And they are going to fight to the death. There's going to be shooting at some point. You can't have this much of an invasion turned back without breaking a few heads. And it's not the side of the federal government that's going to be responsible for that. It's going to be the gangs. The gangs have no place to go. They came here because their own countries want them dead. That's why they're going to fight to the death. You think they're going to be treated well if they go back to places like El Salvador or Guatemala, where they probably have 7 or 8 warrants for murder on them? Letting those people into this country is going to cost the lives of American citizens. It already has. So just hold on to your hats and don't get a weak stomach when things get really nasty. But rooting out these people, it's not just getting some gardener who snuck across the border and wants to make money in a rich man's neighborhood, planting flowers and mowing grass. We're talking about serious criminals that are into drugs, prostitution, child sex trafficking. These are beings of no value, and they know it. And they are not going to just give up and go without a fight. The other thing, too, you want to look at is how the left side in this country is beginning to organize itself. Now, if anyone believes that all the money that was earmarked for Ukraine ended up going to Ukraine to help the people of Ukraine or to buy weapons, I don't believe that for even a fraction of a second, and if you do, I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. It's almost certain, it is certain, that a lot of that money got sent around through all sorts of bank accounts and is going to be at the beck and call of the people that wish to bring back the insanity that is generally referred to as the deep state, the New World Order. They're fighting, and they've got a hell of a war chest to call upon. And what you're going to see is a lot of under-the-radar political activity, like you're seeing in Virginia. A lot of gun laws are trying to be organized in Virginia. Now, there's a Republican governor here in Virginia who's vetoing everything. But 2025 in Virginia is an election year, and governors cannot run for consecutive terms, unfortunately. And given how red the state was and how purple it sort of is and how blue it's getting, there's a pretty good chance that the Democrats will take the governor's mansion this coming November. If that happens, you're going to see Virginia turn into like another California. And nobody's picking up on this. They're going to go after weapons laws. Oh, they really want to get rid of guns now. They really do. This is Empire Strikes Back time, folks. Yeah, the Death Star got blown up when Trump took over, but the empire ain't dead. The deep state is not dead. It is not defeated. So don't sit on your laurels or just go back to the television, eating the salty snacks and drinking the beer and saying, yeah, rah, rah, rah. No. This is a time more than ever to be organized. This is a time more than ever to get involved in local politics, because that's where it all starts. If somebody's been getting Soros money, oh yeah, that guy's still around, as well as his family. Oh, and you think when old Mr. Soros kicks the bucket, it's going to be easy. No, his sons are going to take over, and they are far crazier than he is. And they have many years ahead of them. The Civil War is on right now. It's not a bunch of people on horseback with fancy uniforms and enormous feathers stuck in their hats. It's on. And it's political right now. We are not out of the woods yet, not by a long shot. Again, the good guys have just started to fight back. Just started. So it's important to get involved. It's important to watch the news, the real news, and support the people who wish to get into power. A lot of people who have the capability of entering public office right now should consider doing so. There are still many uncontested seats in the United States. Virginia has that problem. And the Republicans are not the cure-all that people think they are. This is the time to keep the orcs running. Sauron is not yet completely destroyed, but it's a good sign. Now, I'm going to have to end on a bit of a sad note. And this is really kind of heartbreaking. This comes from some friends who pointed this out in Romania. Now, I'm a lover of Western civilization. I do love where my people have come from, and I do love genealogy and learning about all sorts of things. And actually doing some research, I found out that a lot of my ancestors came out of Eastern Europe hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And in the nation of Romania, which has suffered horribly over the last 100 years, especially under communism, a monster named Ceausescu, there's a national treasure, which is a crown that goes back to really prehistoric times. And I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It's called the Cotofanesti crown. It's a solid gold headpiece, quite heavy, I understand, and ancient, thousands of years old. Well, it was on display in the Netherlands, and a handful of thieves using explosives in what seems to be a very klutzy sort of theft stole it and other gold artifacts. When people hear about these things, they don't really care about it, but it's, from what I've read, this is sort of like the Americans losing the Liberty Bell. This is something that's a real cornerstone of their culture. My heart really goes out to these people. Now, a lot of people like to say, well, it's only a thing. You know what? The lives of all of those thieves and anyone that they worked with are worth nothing compared to these artifacts. In fact, I hope they're hunted down and killed. I think we really have to exert deadly force when it comes to protecting our civilization and our culture, and this is one example. This is also an example of European weakness. When criminals like that are allowed to fester and they're not dealt with, I am a firm believer in euthanizing such beings, and I make no apology for it. This is something that can't be replaced. I was reading how school children in Romania are taught about this artifact. It's a source of national pride, of something that goes back thousands of years to when the first people settled that land. Every country has something similar. As I said, here in the United States, we have artifacts like the Liberty Bell. These are important things for a people. Now, the best case scenario with this particular cultural theft is that there's some eccentric billionaire someplace who hired a bunch of thieves to grab it for him, and it's now sitting in a private, secret room in a mansion someplace, and he goes in there every night and sips on some whiskey and listens to music and stares at it for hours on end. Such people exist, and such fate has been suffered by many art treasures over the centuries. The big concern I have here is this is not done by real sophisticated art thieves, that it might be invaders from the Middle East or Africa or some other part of the world that should not be in Europe. If that's the case, and it was stolen for its gold content, which I understand is quite significant, probably worth up to $1 million worth of gold, well, it's already gone. It would have already been melted down by now. And something so irreplaceable about human history removed forever. Not all people have the same value. The Taliban showed that when they destroyed the Buddhist statues in their country because it was an affront to their version of their religion. This is like the Cultural Revolution in China when they destroyed irreplaceable artifacts. This is why Taiwan is such an important place, because when Chiang Kai-shek fled, he took some of the best antiques with him. If you ever get to Taiwan, go to the National Museum. It'll blow your mind at what Chinese civilization was all about and what filthy garbage Chinese communists actually were. But we have to exert ruthlessness over protecting our culture and our civilization. And this latest tragedy that's affected the people of Romania, if we get anything out of it, it has to be to set an example. I hope they catch these people, and I hope each and every one of them is dead. I hope they recover this treasure. And if it has been paid for by some crazy, eccentric billionaire, well, all of his wealth should be confiscated as well as that of his family. We have to fight for what we value. We have to fight for what we love. We're seeing that here in the United States. And even though the current presidential administration, that'll be around for 4 years, is going to do everything it can to bring back sanity, let's not forget that over the last several years, children have been sexually mutilated by beings who considered themselves doctors and parents who considered themselves loving. That can't go unanswered either. It's time we fight back, and it's time we win. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends, and especially share with your enemies. That's always entertaining, believe me. And if you can, please consider a donation. A paid subscription keeps the lights on literally and figuratively. I welcome feedback. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. And, of course, I'm on other social media platforms, not back on Facebook. A lot of people are asking me to try that. Well, I have better things to do right now. This podcast originates at Substack, a beacon of free speech on the internet. And my address there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. You can reach me there also with direct messaging. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, Clown World and the Deep State must be destroyed, and show no mercy. Good day.